Rabbi Wein, we're ready for it.
Very good. Thank you. Very good.
Oh, shoot, that was ready. Sorry. Good. Oh, you have that thing.
Still might be a slight back if you look at the poster. Oh, from this one. Oh, slight. Good. Big little fork. Boker Tov, Chodesh Tov, Marbin B'Simcha. In the dreary world, we need Simcha. So the heroes of these parshas, which conclude this week with the Parsha Kude, the heroes of a number of times. And they have become the symbols throughout the history of the Jewish world of creativity, artistry, talent. The original school of art here in Eretz Yisrael at the turn of the 20th century, it was called Bezalel. Still there today as an institute because of the fact that Bezalel represents this spirit of and talent of artistry. The Torah introduced us to Bezalel in Parshas Truma. Vaydaber Hashem LaMoshe Lemor. God spoke to Moshe. So Moshe is not the architect. Moshe is not the artist. And the Torah says, Re'ei Korosi B'Shem Bezalel ben Uri ben Hur Lamata Yehuda. Behold, I have called out by name Bezalel ben Uri ben Hur Lamata Yehuda. So all the Meforshim asked the question, where did he call them out? This is the first time we meet it. And God tells Moshe, I called him out before. Rei Korosi. He doesn't say, Kach as Bezalel ben Uri ben Hur. Take him and instruct him. Korosi, I already called on him. So there's an idea, Rabbi Moshe Feinstein in his commentary to Chumash, other commentators, it's the idea is almost self-evident. And the idea is as follows. That every human being receives a talent from the Creator. Now, in life, there are many things that happen that obscure that talent, or that the person himself or herself does not realize that they have that talent and do not exploit that talent in their lives. Many surveys have been made about people who work, have a job. Almost all the surveys indicate that most people who have jobs don't like their jobs. They would be rather doing something else. The only thing is we have to put food on the table. We have to pay the mortgage. There are other external factors that force us to engage in whatever we're engaging in. But it's not, in current vernacular, we would say that's not really me. It's not what I want. Because, so to speak, the soul of the person doesn't respond to the behavior of the person. The soul of the person wants something else. And the person therefore remains unfulfilled simply because the soul wants one thing and the person is doing another thing completely. So the interpretation is Rei Karosi B'Shem. I created Betzalel ben Uri ben Hur. I called him out from the beginning. In other words, when we're in our mother's womb yet. And it says, "Va'amale oso v'ruach chochma v'das." I gave him talent and wisdom and the gift of creativity. And the same thing with all Leov. So Moshe, now you give them a chance to exploit that talent and to build the Mishkan. We read in the Navi Yirmiyah that the Ribono Shel Olam, in his first prophecy, so he says, "B'terem etzorcho b'beten yidaticho." Before you were fully formed, I knew you already in the womb. Novi lagoyim nesaticho. I have made you a prophet for all the nations of the world. That, so to speak, is his calling. That's the talent that he had as a child. But what happens is that oftentimes, because of the pressures of life or of family or everything else that impinges upon us, we are unable to follow the calling that we really want to have within ourselves. So the Navi Yirmiyah doesn't want to be a Navi. Nobody wants to be a Navi. Because a Navi has to say, he cannot be politically correct, let's put it that way. Cannot say nice things when nice things are not the truth. And he is forced to make predictions that oftentimes are dire predictions. Nobody wants to hear that. Nobody wants to hear a Navi that says that the Jewish people will go into exile and that the Beit HaMikdash will be destroyed. and that Jewish independence will be completely eliminated. So both Yeshaya and Yirmiyah and Amos and the other prophets of the time, Hosea, they certainly don't want to be a Navi. Amos says, I'm a shepherd. They don't want it. But it's forced upon them. But it's not only forced upon them by external pressures, it's forced upon them by their own inner self. He was born to be a Novi. That's what it means. That's who you are. And that's who you are, and that's what you have to be. So the Meforshim say that life generally is, we say it's the pursuit of happiness, not really, it's the pursuit of oneself. What are we? What am I supposed to be? And we cannot just deal with it in matters of occupation, of what the person does for a living, because oftentimes, or maybe even in the majority of times, that does not in any way really reflect who the person is. And you can see that 100-fold. There are people who are physicians, doctors, who obviously don't want to be a doctor. And then there are people who are physicians and doctors, that for them, that's their whole life, their whole existence. It's true in every facet of life. So when the Ribono Shalom told Moshe, Rei Karosi B'Shem B'Tzalel Ben Uri Ben Hur, and that I filled him with talents and creativity, the Ribono Shalom said, look, you've got people that can build a Mishkan. Now the task is to identify those people and to inspire them and to give them an opportunity to develop that creativity. That's a difficult thing in a society. Again, because of the fact that so many other factors impinge upon it, that it becomes almost impossible. I knew there was a wonderful Jew here in Yerushalayim, Elio Kitov, Elio Monkatovsky. For a while he was with Poli Agudas Yisrael, but he was a very clever man, and he was an orator. He was really an inspirational person. And he had a daughter who had a gift for art, for painting. Now he's a Meir Shorim Dikiyid with the whole outfit. And he sent her to Paris to study art. He sent her to Paris to study. And she became a very good painter. I don't, she had exhibitions all over the world. I knew her as I knew him. So I once asked him directly, you send a young girl to Paris to art? That's really asking for it. Especially if she comes out of Meir Short, not equipped to deal with what you're going to have to see there. And in the school itself. And he said to me, "Vos hab ich gekannt, what choice did I have? Das ist doch ihr Neshama." That's her soul. I cannot fight against her soul. I cannot fight against what her being really is. And he says, you see, it turned out, and it did turn out. She was a religious Jew all of her life. She was a mother of children. She had a big family, everything. But that is a recognition of what the Torah tells us here. I called out. And so sometimes the Lord forces things upon us. Forshim say, it says, why was his name Betzalel? Betzalel El Hoyisa. You're in the shadow of God. What does that mean? And we see that Moshe Rabbeinu in the discussion that he has with Betzalel is forced to admit that Betzalel was right and he was wrong as to whether the Kalim of the Mishkan should be built first or the Mishkan should be built first. So he's the shadow of God. So the Meforshim explain that nobody is the shadow of God, but that we say that the Ribono Shalom Kavayochel has attributes. The Rambam says the attributes have to be viewed from a negative point of view. In other words, when we say God is merciful, we are really saying he's not cruel, because we cannot attribute to God any sort of description. But basically, without that Rambam, we think of attributes. The Yud Gimel Midos, the 13 attributes of God. One of the primary attributes of God is that he's a creator. He's an originator. Borei Olam created this universe. And the more we know about the universe, the greater we are in awe of the creation, of how perfect it is. And how if one little thing was different, it couldn't exist. If we were a little closer to the sun, the earth would burn up. And if we were a little farther, there could be no life, we would freeze. There are literally millions of little things that have to go right in order for anything to go right. I would say regarding human beings, that if God forbid that we're ill, something went wrong, so we're astounded. But we should be astounded that everything goes right. And look at what a complicated thing. Everything has to work perfectly. And we see from our own creations in life that rare is the time when everything works perfectly. So the Ribono Shalom told Bezalel, you're in the shadow of God. The Ribono Shalom is Machadesh b'chol yom tamid ma'aseh b'reishis. Every day renews the wonders of creation. So your creativity is a godly asset. It's a reflection of the Creator. And the Mefarshim point out, there's the Gemara, the Ribono Shalom said, Barasi Yetzer Tov, Barasi Yetzer Hara. I have created aspirations and intentions to do good. And I have created also within human beings the aspirations and ability to do great harm, to make war, to kill, to steal, to be immoral. All of those things are built within us. And then he said, but when I created the Yetzer Hara Barasi Tavlin, I created an antidote to it. I didn't leave it alone in the world so that it could be channeled. The Torah is the Tavlin. I give you a wild example that doesn't apply to anyone that we know. There are people that have a very, very good voice, or they have an ability to sing melodies, etc. And when they do so, it gives them pride, as it should. So the Jewish society has always provided a channel for that. Whether you're the great Chazan that gives concerts, or you're the Baal Tefillah that davens Rosh Chodesh, but there's a channel for you. There's a place for you to express your talent, to be a great singer. There are people that like to speak. I know some people like that. So the Lord gives you an opportunity. There's a big Torah, a lot of ideas. You can talk about it. Not only that, it says, "V'dibarta bom," I want you to talk about it. There are people who have a talent to write. So write about it. Write things that have meaning. That will enthrall people, even entertain people. If you want to, you can also write terrible things. So the talent is given. The channels by which the talent can be developed are also present. The Tavlin is here. Then the question is what the person does with it. That's the choice in life. What do we do with our talents, with our gifts? How are we able to handle it? So in our time, we can reduce it to matters of wealth, money. Only Shalom gives certain people blessings. Today, there are billionaires. It's no big deal to be a millionaire anymore. A billionaire. They'll be trillionaires. But that's a gift from God. The question is, what do you do with it? Even more, the question is, what does it do to you? How can you handle it? Now we see in the world, there's something called artistic temperament, right? Well, he's a great opera singer, so he can be, he never has to control his temper, or he never has to control his desires, or he can eat whatever he wants, etc., because he has artistic temperament. That's an idea that's fixed in human society. The Torah does not recognize artistic temperament. The Torah, if anything, recognizes artistic responsibility. You have such a great talent, let's see what you do with it. You have such great wealth, let's see what you do with it. So that the judgment of heaven is always subjective, not objective. I don't have to impress upon you the famous statement of Reb Zusha of Annapolis, who said, that when he is judged in heaven, so what are they going to ask him? Why wasn't he the Gaon of Vilna? He said he has an answer. He doesn't have the Gaon's mind or memory. And why wasn't he this? He didn't have the books and he didn't have the opportunity. He has an answer for everything. But he said, they're going to ask me, why wasn't I Zusha? That I have no answer for. They'll show him what Zusha could have been. That's the measure. That's the problem here. So Bezalel has an opportunity. Chazal say he was a very young child. He was only bar mitzvah when he started to work on the Mishkan. I don't know how we're supposed to understand that, but we can. There was a time when 13 years old, it was not 13 years old like it is today. Today, my opinion is that we should make bar mitzvahs at 30. That's the start to get it a little by then. To make a 13-year-old kid, it's wasted. But who am I? But Tzalel, you have this great Amalei also, and the Lachsho Machshavos. He's so creative and he's so talented. Yeah, so what's going to be with him? Moshe, tell him to build a Mishkan. That's what he's here for. And that's what he'll be judged on. That's how he'll be remembered. And the same thing is true of Aliyah, and the same thing is true. It says over and over again in the Parsha, Kol Chacham Leiv. Everyone with a wise heart came and did what they could. Their heart told them what to do. And that is an enormous, enormous challenge to all of us. When I had the yeshiva in Muncie, we had a cook. And she was a nice Jewish lady. Nothing's, cooked. but she was so devoted to providing the meals, and that it should be of edible quality, which in yeshivas is always questionable, that we didn't pay her that much, couldn't afford it. And once I had to say, I don't have the money to pay you this month, and I'm going to tell the parents to send the food with their students. And she said, "You don't have to do that, Rabbi. I mean, I do this out of love. I don't care whether you pay me or not." That's why the food tasted good. You didn't care. You didn't care. When I was in the yeshiva in Chicago, a long time ago, still the 40s. So there was a Jew in Chicago who every week, he had an egg business. He gave yeshiva eggs. And there was a Jew that was a wholesale grocer that every week he gave Jello to the yeshiva. So our lunch every day was egg salad and Jello. So we complained. We're tired of the menu. And we complained to the cook. And she wept because that's all they gave her to make. The Rebbe, my Rebbe heard about it. He said to us in the class, you complained? So we said, yeah, Rebbe, we're tired of egg salad and Jello. I can't take it anymore. So he said, there are 3 people, he said here, that are Kona Olam Haba because of this lunch. The guy who gave the eggs, the guy who gave the Jello, and the cook. He said, you want to take away their Olam Haba? Go ahead. We never said a word after that. Was a way to look at things. He said, this man went into the egg business. Lachatchila in heaven, they said, because he's going to have to give egg salad to the yeshivas, he's got to have eggs, so we'll put him in the egg business. That's how the Torah looked at things. And therefore, that's B'tzeil El. You're in the shadow of God, whatever you do. And we're all called by name, Rei Karosi B'Shem. So that has a great influence upon us. It makes our lives meaningful. You can be Kona Olam Haba with egg salad. That was a big lesson to us. You don't have to be the Vilna Gaon. So the Mishkan speaks to us, even though there's no Mishkan today, there's no Beit HaMikdash yet, but the Mishkan still speaks to us because it reflects the creativity and uniqueness of each and every one of us, the soul. It defines what we want to be. And if we're able to somehow have a moment's satisfaction of really being what we want to be, so then we're in touch with our Creator. And that's what it says, V'yosu Migdash, V'shochanti b'sochom, I will dwell in them. That's the idea of the Mishkan. So have a great Shabbat and a great Chodesh. Stay dry and stay warm. Cold too.
Thank you. Chodesh Tov. Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you. Shabbat Shalom.
I just want to say, I have such memories of everything with you, but especially the trip to Russia that we took.
Yes, can't do that again.
Oh my gosh.
I have no idea.
Ali Gottesman.
Hi,
Gottesman, how are you?
how are you?
I've been enjoying coming to your shiur the whole time
Thank
we've
you.
been here. We're doing
Thank
it
you.
for another 10 days. We'll be here back.
Wonderful.
But I wanted to ask Rabbi Wein a question on working in the day. Wanted to know if Rabbi Wein had a connection with the
My connection was Rav Druckmann and he's no longer in it.
no, but the Rabbi Rashi.
I don't know him at all.
You don't know.
I'm sorry, I don't know him at all.
Would Rabbi Wein know someone who might know him that would be able to be helped? Because we heard that that was the into him might be the into helping some of these people.
I'll think about it. I don't offhand, I don't know.
Okay, thank you. Good job.
Thank you.